Welcome to Mayhem CEDH, where questionable decks meet questionable pilots. For this week, with the SummerSlam over, we're taking a small break from recorded CEDH. So let's have a little fun. Punts. They happen to all of us in this game. We keep in punts in our videos to show that no one is perfect and we're all human and make mistakes from time to time. With that said, strap in and get ready to yell at your screen because today we're counting down the top 8 punts on channel as of upload. And for those of you in the Ames area, stick around to find out how you can get 10% off your next Mayhem Ames purchase. Number 8, Jack counters Seasons Past. Starting off this countdown, we have a punt from yours truly. He casts a Seasons Past, targeting Flooded Strand, Noxious Revival, Force of Negation, and Resculpt in his graveyard. Rashmi triggers, and in response, Jack casts Swan Song, targeting Seasons Past. Seasons Past is countered, Rashmi reveals an Arcane Signet into Kalen's hand, and Kalen creates a 2/2 bird. Now, my mindset for this play was I was confident that if I stopped him from refilling his hand with counter magic, I could win with Hullbreaker Horror. Unfortunately, I completely forgot that just a turn earlier he used Noxious Revival to put Rapid Hybridization on top of his library, so the win still wasn't happening for me. On top of this led to Kalen and I not having any way to deal with the Teshar player obviously about to attempt to win. Craft presents a loop of using Memnite and Mirror Retriever combined with Teshar to infinitely buy back and sacrifice to Blasting Station. So, yeah, not great. Number 7, Evan fetches Tundra. Listen, we all love Evan, but it's no secret that he's susceptible to questionable choices. In the first game of the SummerSlam, Evan cracks a Wooded Foothills, fetching up Tundra he couldn't fetch. No one at the table caught it, but what makes this a true punt is what comes next. He casts Windfall. It resolves and everyone discards their hands and draws 6 new cards. See that Windfall? There went all of Evan's green sources, knocking him out of the game. Evan ranted the whole night after that one. Never change, Evan. Number 6, Aiden casts Dovescape. Here's a punt from our very first video on the channel. In our Neon Dynasty video, Aiden brought a Go Shintai stacks list that sought to use all the enchantment stacks it could. They cast Dovescape, paying for Craft Sentinel. Now, Dovescape might be a solid stacks piece in certain pods, but keep in mind that there's a Hinata deck at the table with Hinata out. Guess what happens next? Noah draws and casts Bi-Force, targeting all artifacts, cheapened by Hinata, paying for Aiden's Sentinel. In response, Cole taps his Felwar Stone, floating in blue. Dovescape triggers, and Noah creates 13 1/1 birds. Noah then follows it up with an Aurelia's Fury, targeting all creatures. Dovescape triggers, countering Aurelia's Fury, and Noah creates 24 more bird tokens. And not a 1, by the way. Number 5, Pilch discards Obliterate. Another from the SummerSlam, the actual punt here is Pilch not going for a Witherbloom Apprentice Chain of Smog win with protection in hand. However, the final nail in the coffin was this. Pilch draws and upticks Windgrace, discarding an Obliterate and drawing a card. He plays a Gemstone Caverns of his own and casts Eternal Witness, returning Obliterate to his hand, and casts Aiden's Demonic Tutor, fetching up a card into his hand. With the table on high alert, Pilch passes. So, with the threat of an Obliterate that Pilch could have just cast, Kalen decided to kill him first, and understandably so. He moves to combat and attacks Aiden with Lathril, Craft with Craterhoof, and Pilch with Eladamri, Harbinger, Arbor Elf, and 2 Elf tokens. Everyone takes the hit, Kalen creates 10 Elf tokens through Lathril and becomes the Monarch, and Pilch dies. Number 4, Cody counters Demonic Tutor. Maybe you're noticing a trend here that a lot of these are countering the wrong thing, and sometimes you just forget that there's a bigger fish at that moment. While Asurak isn't a deck you should be particularly concerned about in a pod with a threat like Najila, the old saying of don't counter the tutor, counter the card they tutor for rings true here. They cast Demonic Tutor. In response, Cody casts Brainstorm, drawing 3 and putting 2 back on top. Still in response, Cody pays a life to cast Force of Will, exiling Mystical Tutor. Demonic Tutor is countered, and Aiden passes. Without any other counter magic in his hand, this Demonic Tutor being countered allows Jack to go for the win 2 turns later. With Notion Thief destroyed, Jack presents a loop of venturing through Lost Mine of Phandelver. With Dark Pool draining the table and enough cards in deck, the table sees the writing on the wall, and Jack wins the game. Number 3, Jack counters Thoughts of Ruin. This pun isn't because of a bad play, but because of some memory and counting issues. See, Evan is trying to blow up all lands, and the rest of the table would rather that not happen. And despite being Gruul, Evan is putting up a fight on the stack. But one card forgotten on the table was Josh's Damping Sphere. Now, let's count the mana, shall we? Evan draws and casts Ruination. In response, Jack casts Fierce Guardianship, targeting Ruination. In response, Evan casts Autumn Veil. In response, Jack casts Swan Song, targeting Autumn's Veil. In response, Evan casts Pyroblast, targeting Swan Song. This is where Jack completely miscounts his mana and cheats. He casts Mana Drain, targeting Ruination. Ruination is countered, Swan Song is countered, Autumn's Veil resolves, and Fierce Guardianship fizzles. Whoops. Number 2, Josh cracks Memory Jar. As one YouTube comment put it, Memory Jar isn't something you crack on another person's turn in response to a destroy effect. Tanner, with no other cards in hand, casts Manglehorn, targeting Josh's Memory Jar. Caitlin has plenty of counter magic in hand. Josh, not knowing this, cracks Memory Jar in response. Let's see what happens next. Tanner presents a loop of using Beast Within, combined with looping Eternal Witness through Kogla to destroy each player's permanents, giving them all 3/3 Beast tokens. Yeah, sometimes it's best to just take the loss of your jar. And at number 1, Evan casts Bolas's Citadel. At our number 1 slot, we have an Evan Classic, casting a Bolas's Citadel with a Dreadnought Magistrate in play. But what makes this the number 1 punt isn't just that, it's that Evan then goes to resolve a Doomsday off the top of his library and no alive player at the table stops him. As Evan begins to resolve Doomsday, Jack reminds the table that Noah's Dreadnought Magistrate is still on the battlefield. The only reason this punt was caught is because Jack, the dead player, looks up from his phone and points out the Magistrate. Doomsday was backed up and Evan was left with an expensive sack outlet. Like I said at the beginning, Magic's hard. For those of you in the Ames area who stuck around, come to Mayhem Comics and Ames this week and ask for the YouTube discount. You'll be asked the question, what was the number 1 punt? Answer correctly and get 10% off your purchase. All right, that concludes our top 8 punts on the channel. What was the most aggravating punt? Was there another one you thought deserved to be on the list? Let us know in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day.